The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. At that time, after Jesus had ended all his saying in the hearing of the people, he entered Capernaum. Now a centurion had a slave who was dear to him, who was sick and at the point of death. When he heard of Jesus, he sent to him elders of the Jews, asking him to come and heal his slave. And when they came to Jesus, they begged him earnestly, saying, "He is worthy to have you do this for him, for he loves our nation, and he built us a synagogue." And Jesus went with them. When he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends to him, saying to him, "Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you under my roof. Therefore I did not presume to come to you. But say the word, and let my servant be healed. For I am a man set under authority with soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes. And to my slave, do this, and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he marveled at him, and turned and said to the multitude that followed him, "I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith." And when those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the slave well. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Glory to Jesus. I want to begin this reflection from the statement Jesus Christ made. I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith. Who are the Israelites? The chosen children of God, isn't it? And Jesus Christ is saying that he has not found faith that is that mighty amongst the chosen children of God. The first principle of the spiritual world we must understand and accept is that if you are for God, the devil will fight you. So you must be ready for that war. You must be ready for that war. By the way, are you asking in your mind why God allows the devil to fight you? What are you talking about? Do you choose to be a pig? If you want God to stop the devil from fighting you, then it means you are telling God to change your current status as a human person. Hello? Hi. Have you not heard that the devil flee from some people? Have you not heard that the devil flee from some people? Why does the devil flee from them? We have looked down on ourselves so much, and we have come to the level where we believe very much that we must be tended as machines, so that we don't take responsibility anymore, and we don't take the onus upon ourselves to fight. If we do not want the devil to trouble us anymore, and we don't want to tell God to stop the devil from troubling us, then it means we are telling God to turn us into animals, or to turn us into a fan, or into a tree. Have you heard the tree praying? So that you no longer pray anymore, isn't it? And because that's what we're looking for. Look at left, right, up and down. People looking helpless because of the presence of Satan. A human being like you who is possessed will bring you to your knee and you have nothing to do. Thanks to Jesus Christ, who actually willed that his children be gentle. Probably it's because of the gentility that's making us think that we don't have power. There are ways. If Jesus had left us to use our own initiative, and I discover a possessed person, I will drain blood out of that person. I will separate the person's blood, put in there, and leave the person. Let's see how your possession will go. But you know something, my dear friends? You see, the power that God has given us is not the power by which we make use of physical muscle for fighting. Do you know why? Because if we enter into that dimension of wanting to use physical muscle, the devil will finish the human race with the human race. So every possessed person is a slave and a servant, a once innocent person that the devil has plunged into a condition where you will see the person to kill. All of us will become killers, and they will have bloodstains in our hands. Many people have wondered, why would Jesus not allow us to destroy our enemies, to kill those who are persecuting us? Which power do you think covens have? If you are suffering any persecution now, there is somebody that is standing as a connection from the dark world to you. Even those in the church, for instance, can actually be a standard of connection from the dark world to injure you. Yes. But no matter how much we do wishful thinking, there is a fact you must accept, first of all, that you were created in God's image and likeness. That can no longer change. So go and find out who you are. Find out where God is in you. Because if you are created in His image, you must beam His image. Enough has to be enough for our laziness. It's the reason why we feel so weak. It's the reason why we feel so weak. Hello? Are you with me? Three persons in the Old Testament revealed something very, very great to us. Because this is where our problems start. Our inability to be true in our worship. Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah revealed to us that we can gather for worship and our worship will not be accepted. That we can gather for worship, hello, and our worship will be offensive to God. In fact, Ezekiel said it. Amos also said it too. Amos also said it. That the fragrance that comes from your office causes God cough. Something that is supposed to be sweet. Why do we offer burnt offerings? We offer burnt offerings because we believe that God enjoys the aroma. Isn't it? Like you are cooking the best food at home and everyone is happy even though they've not tasted the food because of the aroma. And then when we gather together to offer burnt offerings, it is now said that the aroma that comes from the smoke causes God cough. That is, the aroma becomes irritating. Amos said it. Ezekiel said it. Isaiah said it. Jeremiah also said it too. And God complained that what he receives from these people are lip service, shallow religiosity. There is no depth in their worship. So we could have about 4 persons, not 3 as I said earlier, from the Old Testament that reveal to us that we can gather official gathering and God will not accept it. The same thing can also be of our mass today. Yes. Now let us look at 1 Corinthians chapter 11 verses 17 to 26 and verse 33. St. Paul speaking to the Corinthians, expressing his disappointment about their gathering. He expressed disappointment about their gathering, that people gather together, but they are not together. Hello? Yeah. That people gather together, but they are not together. He talked about how they celebrated the Mass, because this Mass we are celebrating today was already there. And you could see at the tail end, St. Paul was describing the Mass, that this is what you are celebrating. That you are celebrating the meal that Jesus Christ had with the apostles at the Last Supper. And that Jesus Christ decreed that this should be done in memorial of him. And so don't let anybody deceive you that our today Mass does not carry the same, that Jesus Christ has made today Mass very, very easy. That even if the priest is not worthy, even if the people is not worthy, the Mass is valid. Look, doctrine and dogma cannot change revelation. Doctrine and dogma cannot change revelation. We can gather and celebrate Mass, and the Lord does not receive the Mass. We can gather and celebrate Mass, and the Mass will be insults to God. When the priest claims that altar and does not claim the altar with reverence and respect and true worship for God, and celebrates Mass with consciousness of sin and the resolve to even sin the more, look, it's not possible for God to accept that sacrifice. Because the early church tells us exactly what it's meant to be. So every single doctrine and dogma that came further to tell us that an unworthy priest can celebrate a worthy Mass is wrong. Because if the Mass is a sacrament, and then we have not changed the doctrine that he who eats and drink unworthily eats and drink judgment to the self, it also means that he who celebrates Mass unworthily celebrates judgment to himself. So both the priest and the people must be in a condition of agreement under the authority of God for a Mass to be valid. God is not a fool. And it's so difficult to even use that word in a sentence where the word God is. But I don't have any option, because this is what we've done. And we have institutionalized it, that God takes shit. And we all grew within this. I myself grew within that condition too. Just jump up and climb the altar and celebrate Mass, whether you are ready for it or not. Yes. And St. Paul, apart from the prophets that said an official worship can happen that will be offensive to heaven, or an official worship can happen that God will reject, St. Paul himself is also saying this in the New Testament. He says that there are divisions amongst you, for there are factions amongst you, and that you do not converge genuinely anymore. And then do you know what he said next? He said, when you meet for the Lord's Supper, it is no longer the Lord's Supper that you are celebrating. That's very strong. He said, within this condition, when you celebrate Mass, it is not Jesus' Mass you are celebrating. So whose Mass are we celebrating? If it is not Jesus' Mass, it cannot be any other Mass apart from Satan's Mass. When a priest celebrates Mass with malice, when you come to church with malice, when we have hatred for each other, all these things are very, very much clear. A church that is not united, a church that does not carry everybody along. There was something St. Paul said. The division that exists in any body is not ordinary division. The division has name. The division is such a division that places importance on some and places less importance on others. Are you with me? When Jesus was celebrating that Mass, even Judas Iscariot himself was in the high table. There was no discrimination. And if there be discrimination, Jesus Christ was ready to cement everyone. When he washed people's feet, he didn't wash some and left some. He washed the feet of every one of them, including the one that betrayed him eventually. So how dare a church, just as it is in the Catholic Church today, have respect for few, especially those who are rich, and despises the poor? I tell you, no matter the theology, the canon law, or whatever liturgical reform that may be established, when a Mass is celebrated under that condition, where there are some people who are seen as elite and there are those who are seen as non-elite, the Mass of Jesus Christ is absent. You know, as I was looking through the gospel today, when Jesus Christ exclaimed that he has never seen such faith as this in Israel, Luke chapter 7 verses 1 to 10 contains a story in which a centurion asked Jesus Christ to come to his house. Jesus was already on the way. But the man felt, who is he to house this kind of man of God? He's not worthy. Look, the faith that man combined, he's not worthy. People want Jesus Christ to come and touch them. But the man looked at his unworthiness and looked at the holiness of Jesus Christ and said, just say the word there. My house is too dirty for you. Just say the word there. My servant will be healed. Where did that faith come from? A rich man wants to make sure that the bishop enters his house. How can you be sending me a message from there? Come and take lunch with me and so on and so forth. It is part of their pride to have elites in their house. But this man recognizes unworthiness and then combined with an undoubting faith. The faith did not just start. The faith that Jesus Christ is congratulating did not just start from the faith of the man saying, say the word, and my servant will be healed. Say the word. Many people want physical touch, believing that it's when there's a physical touch that the healing will come forth. He was the first man that advocated a remote miracle, a miracle from a distance. That is number one. But where this faith of this man started from, that Jesus Christ recognized, was a centurion, a high Roman official who treats his servant as his own son. Are you with me? This is something that we are not looking at each time we look at this gospel. He says a slave is dear to him. A slave is dear to him. I have heard stories of slaves that did everything for their masters, and their masters saw them as shit. So a slave dear to you is not because a slave loves you. You don't need the love of a slave. A slave is subhuman where you are. A slave is like a cow or a goat that you can kill at any time. A slave is a slave. But this centurion took somebody as a slave and saw him as his son, dear to him. What can a slave do that will satisfy a master? Because good work means more work. Look at the entirety of the West was built on the straw back of slavery. Did they appreciate them? So the fact that slaves walk and walk and walk and build hedges and build empires and build pyramids and so on and so forth still does not mean that the slave will be dear or beloved. That was where the faith that Jesus Christ appreciated started from. This is exactly what St. Paul was talking about when he was speaking to Onesimus. That if you have a slave, you should treat your slave as a son of God, as a brother of Christ. That I'm no longer sending this slave to you back as a slave, but as your brother. If we do not have that community mind here, we will celebrate mass and the mass will be useless. Trust me. For a mass to be valid, our hearts must express the heart of Christ. Nobody should be left suffering. Every one of us must sacrifice to raise one that is falling. The sinner amongst us must be cured by us, not pushed outside. Must be saved by us, not pushed outside. The sick one amongst us, which parish do you want to cure his or her sickness? Why are you there? This is what makes the mass the mass. Everybody's problem is everybody's problem. If we cannot found a parish that is on that foundation, trust me, every single worship in this hall will be an insult to God that called us to faith. Today we celebrate Cyprian and Cornelius. One a pope, the other one a bishop. If you see their relationship, one does not see himself as a pope. And the one who is a bishop does not see himself as mightier than his flock. Eventually, both of them were killed for the faith. Do you know what that means? That as high as the pope and as high as the bishop, they benefited from the suffering of their poor parishioners. The pope and the bishop were seen in the suffering of poor parishioners, not in the establishment of king's palace or politicians. But they were seen, so they were humiliated under the same pain. Just like the persecution that have been going on in Nigeria. When a parent cannot die for a child, that parent loses the authority of parenthood. I end there. But that's what is happening in Nigeria. The poor are suffering alone. And those who are supposed to die in their place have sold them for death. Yes. It's the reason why you have to stand up and leave this feferity that people do. Stand up. The only person that is worthy of your feferity is the Lord Jesus Christ. Because the man who died for you is the man that can save you. Anyone who has not died for you and you have not seen a step that's been moved to sacrifice for you should not be regarded as anything where you are. Be deliberate in your worship and let your authority come from the one who called you to faith. May God bless us all.